Welcome back. We've been cooking with Holly Miner from the K-State Extension Service this morning, and we've been talking about food preservation techniques and showing us how to can some salsa.
Right. We want to make sure that our salsa is canned safely. That's the whole reason why we can it, is so that when we take it out of the jar, it's safe to eat. So we want to make sure we're following those tested recipes and the procedures correctly.
All right, so we actually put together our salsa now. We made it with actually canned tomatoes, but you talked about how you would do it with fresh tomatoes. We
exactly.
just don't have the time in our morning show.
Yeah, so you would normally blanch your tomatoes, chop them up according to the directions. We've simmered this for 20 minutes, so it's ready to go into the jars now. You can use the ladle, and we'll just turn that spoon over to the side. You can go ahead and use the ladle, and we'll ladle it right into the jars. We have our funnel in our jar. Our jars have been washed, and they've been put in a warm canner to keep them warm, so the jars are warm. Our salsa is hot, and we're going to put it in there, and we're going to leave an inch and
oh, that's too much, right?
Yep, that's a little bit too much. So we'll do it over here, and hopefully we can just pour it back in.
That's probably still, you said about an inch.
Yeah, so we leave about an inch on this one, about an inch and a half headspace, or inch and a fourth headspace, and we'll set that in the next jar. And here's our little tool, so you can just use this part to go down around. So we want to make sure we're clearing our air bubbles out of our jars. So that's what we would use that process for.
Down here, just like that?
Yep, exactly. Go all the way around the outside and then in the inside as well. The other thing this helps do is to make sure that the food is down. So now we can see that we can add a little bit more to that. But let's go ahead and test it with our little tool there. So each one of those is a fourth, so we'll go on the very last one. And if it's not touching the little thing, we can add a little bit. And if it's touching, then we take a little bit out.
Okay.
And so we want to make sure that our headspace is correct. And probably, yeah, if we can get some with a little bit of juice in there, that'd be great. That's probably good. So there's a little bit of a process to this. We want to make sure that we're doing it quickly so that our food stays warm. And, you know, if you're first time doing this, it's going to take a little bit.
I put too much in there.
It's a learning process. It's a learning process. So
no, probably not enough.
No, that's good. I think it looks good, right where you had it. We'll go ahead and release the air bubbles again, and then that'll help make sure that everything is down.
Okay.
And when we get that done, the next thing we want to do is we want to wipe off the rim of the jar, because we want to make sure that our jar is clean. So you can go ahead and set it down. Because our jars are warm and our food is warm, we're setting it on a towel or some kind of a mat to make sure that our jars aren't coming into contact with a cold surface so they don't crack. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going around the top of the rim to make sure that we have everything off there. And then we'll use our two-piece flat system, put our flat on, and then we'll put our other ring band on. And this is fingertip tight, and we go a quarter of a turn more. So that's as tight as we need to go. And you can use the jar lifter, and we'll pull the lid off of the canner, and we'll put that in the canner. So in the canner we have our water. It's full up to the top, where it would be an inch to 2 inches over the top of the jars. And we would put that in there, and then we would process those jars when we get them all full for 15 minutes, so that when the water is boiling after we put all the jars in, we would process it for 15 minutes with the water on a continuous boil for the whole time. And then once the time is up, we shut the canner off, and we let them sit in the canner. We take the lid off, but we let them sit there for 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then at that time, we would pull them out. So you can go ahead and pull out the jars that have processed already. So pull out the, whoops, which ones are the?
These two.
Yeah. Yep, so these are jars that we've processed already, and we'll set those down on the, again, we want to put them on a warm mat, because when they come out of the canner, they are boiling hot.
Now, I noticed that you have a handy dandy little tray in here that helps hold them, keeps them from falling.
Yeah, so if you want to pull that jar back out, we can talk about the tray. So the rack that is in our canner actually helps keep the jars off the bottom of the canner, we want to make sure that the water circulates around all of the jars so that the jars can heat properly. So the jars need to be off the bottom of the canner, and then they're also off of that heat surface so that their jars aren't touching the direct heat.
Well, I noticed that when the handles are down like that, it made it to where they don't fall over.
Right, exactly.
Keeps them separated too.
Yeah, so if you had a canner that wasn't quite full of 7 jars, you could put some extra jars in there and just put them with water in them. Not put a lid on them, but just put them in the water. That would hold the space so that they wouldn't tip over in the canning process.
Okay.
So.
Right.
Yeah, so then we'll process those for 15 minutes and they'll be ready to go. But in the meantime, we're gonna just dish a little bit of this up so you guys can see what this looks like. And this salsa can be frozen, so you can put it in freezer containers and have it in the freezer. You can also have it fresh, just like this. We could cool this down, add some chips to it. It'd be a great little snack to have. We know that,
Sounds
you know,
like
when we home can or grow our vegetables, we know where they've come from. We know what we've put in our food. It's a great way to know that our food is nutritious and healthy for us. So.
Okay, so if you'd like to learn the complete process, let's run over our canning classes that you guys are going to be hosting.
Yes, August 2nd, 11th, and 9th. And give our office a call at 620-331-2690. And we would be glad to have everyone sign up.
And you were telling me registration is required, so you have enough stuff for everybody, but it's free of charge.
It's free of charge, registration required, so we know.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on. This was an educational experience for me. Sorry, I'm a little messy.
It's okay. It's all in the process, and it's all good.
We'll be right back.